Welcome to session 2. We're going to be adding a second scene to our game. We're going to add a title scene to it. In the title scene, we will be creating some interactive text and just doing a little blink effect to draw attention to where you need to click to start. But before we get to that, I updated the assets zip, so we're now able to add these clouds to our game. And we're going to use those in the game scene when we background effect. So before we get into the rest of it, we need to load those images. So we're going to go to our preload.js and we're just going to add this.load.image. We're going to go ahead and let's call it Cloud 1 and Cloud 2. Located over in Assets, Images, Cloud1.png. And then we'll do the same thing for Cloud 2. So what's going to happen is our preload scene is going to run. It's going to do all of the code, run our loading box. It's going to run all of our load code to put the assets in memory. And then we are going to tell the scene to start the actual title scenes. Save this, .scene.start. And let's just call it title. Which means we need to now add a second scene file to our configuration and load an index.html. So we're going to create a new file, either right click and go to new file, or you can click this button here. Let's call this title.js. Then in main, we're going to add title scene to our scene configuration. Then in index, we need to load that title.js that we just created. So we load canvas, we can actually look script source equals, we're going to load title. Over here in title.js, I can just run my alert, say title works, and up and running. So it runs our preload scene, loads all of our images, and then it actually starts the title scene. But we don't have anything there yet, so it's just going to be an empty title. So first thing to do is create our title scene class. We're going to say class title scene. Again, we're going to extend the constructor, or I'm going to extend the scene from Phaser. All this auto-generated code, this is a GitHub Copilot. I'll talk about that later on in a different video when we do resources that you have access to. But this is something you can pull up that teachers can get for free through GitHub. We're going to extend phaser.scene. We're going to make our constructor. We're going to run super of title, and it needs to match the key that we put here. Actually, this needs to match what we have in the class, but capitalized, we need to make sure that both of them are, otherwise it's going to say that we don't have a valid key for them. Then we don't need to add a preload function to this one because all of our assets were loaded in the preload scene, so we can go straight to create. Now, first thing I want to do is add some text to it. So I'm going to create a variable called title text. It's going to be equal to this.add.text. Now to position it, I need to know what my width and height are. So I've got my canvas configured to 1600 by 900. So I can add that text. We'll put it at 800, 500. See how that looks. One thing to remember too, when we're talking about the y coordinate, in Phaser, the 0, 0 is your top left corner. So as we position things on the screen, our X is going to increase left to right like normal. But as we go from the top of the screen down, bigger numbers are down in Phaser. So just remember that. So when we go to 500, it's not going to be going up. That is from 0, 0 up in the top left, 500 pixels down below. Then we're going to tell it what we want it to say. So for our title, we can just call it Balloon Pop. If you want to put Balloon Game, whatever you think fits is fine. Then we're going to pass the text a configuration object because I want to change the size of the text. And so inside that configuration, I'm just going to say font size. And let's go with, this has to be a string, so it needs to be quotes. We'll say 128 pixels. Now when I run my scene, it's going to again go through preload. Preload will activate title, and we should see this text object. We should see that text appear in the... Oh, I goofed. So what's happening here is in our index.html, we have created a canvas with an ID of game, and since we did not assign a canvas in the config, Phaser is creating its own. Since we've only got one canvas running, really not a reason to create one. So let's scrap line 19 here. And now when I run it, there we go. We've only got the one canvas on top. Now the text is showing over on the right side of the screen because a text object's default origin is the top left corner. So one thing that we can do to change that is set the origin to be the center of the text so that it appears dead center of the screen. So after we have created, back in title.js, after we have created our text object, we're going to say this.titleText.setOrigin. I'm going to put the X and the Y both at 0.5 if you wanted to. Could also just set one of them and that will set both of them to the same value. And when I run this time, our text will be in the center of the screen. So next thing we need to do is we need to have this text clickable so that it starts the game scene. So to do that, we are just going to say this dot. We could attach it to the actual text if it said click here, but in this case, I just want to have it anytime that they click, whether they click the text object or the screen. So we're going to say this dot input dot on pointer down. We're going to run this dot scene dot start. It's going to be a function for our callback. And instead of running preload, we're going to run game, which we haven't created yet. So we've added the title text to the scene, centered it with our set origin, and then this dot input dot on pointer down scene dot start. If we run this right now, though, we're just going to get an error. So to test it, just try alert. We'll just say click works. We run that. Our balloon pop. We need a second text though that tells us to actually click. So let's add a second text object. We'll say this dot click text equals dot add dot text, but we don't want to go to the same place, so let's go down 700. For the size, I would say we want a little bit bigger than 64. Let's bump that up to 72 pixels. Keep the fill color the same. So now we've got a second text object. Here it says balloon pop. Click to start. I want to center it. I'm just going to run that set origin again on click text. So we'll say this click text set origin 0.55. Now everything's nice and centered. Next thing I want to do is add an effect to this that just says, well, that just blinks. So to do that, we're going to create a tween. And what tweens do is they will take a value, any value that you want. It can be a variable for an object, it can be its position, it could be a score, whatever you want to do, and it's going to take a starting value, it's going to put an ending value, you give it a duration, and over that duration it will change the value. So in this case, what we're going to tween is the alpha of the click to start object. I'm going to say this.tweens.add. Our target is going to be this.clickText. Set the alpha to 0 to be completely invisible. Duration is how long it's going to run in milliseconds. So I want to do 1,000, 1 second long. We're going to say repeat. -1. Now you can put a number here, and if you put a 2, what that will do is actually play the animation 3 times, because it will run the animation, then it's going to run your 2 repeats. So if you want it to play the animation twice, you want to have 1 repeat there. -1 means I want this to loop forever. It's never going to stop. It will continue to blink as long as the program is running. And then we're going to add yo-yo. That just means when the animation's finished, play it again in reverse. So it's going to go from seeable all the way to invisible. Then it's going to fade back into where you can see the text. We want to set that to true and run it. Make sure everything works. There is our balloon pop. Our click to start is down here. When I click, we still get our alert. So everything is good. Now what we need to do is add our game scene to our files. So again, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it game.js. We're going to go to main, and we're going to add in our scene configuration. We're going to add game scene. When we go to create our class, we need to make sure again that it matches this exactly. We're going to go to index and load this game.js that we just created. Okay, so we've got main, we've got index. Now we just need to create the actual class. So we're going to say class game scene extends phaser.scene. Constructor run super. Again, this key is the same thing that we're going to use whenever we try to activate that scene. Down here in title, where we've said what scene we want to start, this is the key that it's looking for. So the configuration will take this key, look through all of the scenes that are in the main configuration, and then launch our game scene, because game scene will have that key in its super. Then we need to create our create method. And in that we can say alert game scene is live. Run that. Click. Oh, that first one. Okay, and it does not actually start our game. So what is that? Oh, this.scene.start game is there. Oh, we forgot our callback context. We need to pass comma this, or our pointer down. It's working. That's everything that I wanted to accomplish in this one. I'm going to go back through and just pause on each of the individual files so that you have some time to code them all in case I went over something wrong in the or too fast in the video. So here is game.js in its entirety. Feel free to pause and code away at this one. This is the updated index HTML. All that we had to change was we deleted the line regarding the canvas, and then we added in game.js, we added in the title.js. So pause there and add your loading scripts if you need to. In preload, we added the load.image lines here so that we could load the clouds that are in the assets folder. We also start the title scene in our create method. And in title.js, we have our constructor. Got our create method where we create the title text that actually shows up. We center it. Add our click text. Center set origin. So this is our title scene here. I'm going to pause at this part, let you type up anything that you missed, and then I will scroll down and pause again for the second part. So here is the first section. And here is the scene that we added. And then our game scene is just test right now. Next session we will actually get the balloons set up and be able to click them and collect some points. That's it for this session.